This is DJI's best wireless microphone at the moment, the Mic 3. And this is the brand new Mic Mini 2S. Can you hear the difference? At first glance, the Mic Mini 2S looks a lot like its predecessor, the Mic Mini 2. But if we look at the specifications, it has gained 32-bit float recording, up to 28 hours of internal storage, and support for up to 4 transmitters on a single receiver. If those features sound familiar, it's because they are largely identical to those we find in the DJI Mic 3. And that raises a pretty wild question. Has DJI, with the Mic Mini 2S, actually created a Mic 3 in disguise? And have they made their own, more expensive flagship redundant for the most of us? In this video, I'll go through all the details and I will reveal the few points where the Mic 3 actually differs. The answer to whether the extra money for the Mic 3 is even worth it definitely surprised me during the testing. As you might know, sound is more than half of a good video experience. You can have the most beautiful 4K image coming from your camera or the latest iPhone, but if the audio is hollow, weak or clipping, people will click away immediately. The Mic Mini 2S builds on the ultra-compact Mini series, but where the first two Mic Minis were pure transmitter-to-receiver microphones without any internal memory, the 2S version has received a major overhaul. The transmitter itself still weighs only about 12 grams. This means that when you clip it onto the collar of a polo shirt, a dress shirt or a t-shirt, it doesn't pull on the fabric. And just like on the DJI Mic 3, you have 2 ways to mount it: the classic clip or the small magnet that you place inside your clothing. Oh, and if you aren't into the classic black and white standard colors, the largest package comes with a whole set of multicolored magnetic front covers. So you can, for example, color coordinate the microphone to your outfit. The colored covers can also be purchased separately for 19 euros. And if you want to spice things up even more, DJI has released a collection of covers designed by the artist Victor Ngai. On the largest package, you also get 2 microphones and a case for storing both microphones and the receiver. But if you only need 1 microphone, DJI also sells 2 cheaper packages. They are available with 2 different receivers and a somewhat smaller, but also more limited charging case. I'll get back to the differences and how much the packages cost, but first let's jump straight to the core and the 2 biggest arguments for even comparing the Mic Mini 2S with the Mic 3: 32-bit float and internal recording. For the first time in the Mini series, we get up to 28 hours of built-in storage directly in the small transmitter. This means that even if the wireless connection to your camera, phone or laptop drops for any reason, the entire audio file is still sitting crystal clear inside the microphone. And you can also use the small microphone as an ultra-compact digital recorder entirely without a camera, because you can start a recording simply by pressing the record button on the side. If you use the wireless receiver, you can set the microphone to automatically start recording internally when it connects. And if you use a DJI camera, the microphone can automatically start internal recording when you start the video recording on the camera. At the same time, the recording can be set to 32-bit float, and that is quite crucial. In traditional 16 or 24-bit audio, you have to set your gain, that is how sensitive your microphone is, quite precisely. If you speak too loudly or a sudden loud sound occurs, the recording clips. It sounds absolutely horribly and distorted, and you can never save it in editing. If you speak too softly and have to turn up the volume afterwards, you'll get plenty of digital noise. With 32-bit float, the dynamic range is so enormous that it's practically impossible to overload the microphone. Even if you shout directly into it, you can simply reduce the volume in your editing software and the sound is still perfectly clean. If you whisper, you can just turn it up. And here's the first important point in our duel. Until now, it was precisely 32-bit float that made the more expensive Mic 3 and the earlier Mic 2 unique. But with the Mic Mini 2S, DJI has taken the exact same 32-bit float technology and put it into their cheaper Mini series. But what about the general sound quality? Is there a difference? Well, right now I'm speaking into one microphone and it sounds like this. And now I'm speaking into the other. Can you hear the difference? On paper, the Mic 3 actually has better specifications and can also transmit audio in lossless quality if you use the receiver that comes with it. However, it cannot connect to the Mic Mini 2S receiver, so I have both microphones connected to my Pocket 3 directly instead. I'll let your own ears decide if there is a difference, because I must admit I can't hear it. So for most of us, I think that the new Mic Mini 2S will work just as well as the Mic Mini 3. Another area where the Mic Mini 2S now matches the Mic 3 is the number of microphones you can connect to the receiver. Most wireless sets in the Mic Mini's category, and all previous Mic Mini models, only support 2 transmitters to 1 receiver. That's fine for 2 people, but what if you're 3 or 4? Maybe you need to record a panel, a podcast with several participants, or an interview with more than 2 people. The receiver included with the Mic Mini 2S now supports up to 4 transmitters with independent audio channels. And as an extra bonus, it supports cross-generation connectivity. This means that if you already own one of the first generations of Mic Minis, you can connect your old transmitters to the new 2S receiver alongside the new units. So you don't need to throw out your existing equipment to expand your recordings to 4 people. Unfortunately, you cannot connect a Mic 2 or a Mic 3, that is, those without Mini in the name, to the transmitter. Trust me, I have tried. The Mic 3's receiver also supports 4 simultaneous microphones, but it does have the difference that you can use up to 8 receivers at the same time if you want the same audio sent to multiple cameras at once. And it also supports synchronization via timecode. However, I believe very few of us actually need that, and if you're working on a production where it's necessary, the question is whether you wouldn't choose other microphones than DJI's anyway. The Mic 3's receiver also has a built-in color touchscreen where you can directly adjust all the settings. On the Mic Mini 2S receiver, you can only adjust the gain. All other settings, such as recording mode, noise cancellation strength, the receiver's automatic on-off setting and external speaker, must be controlled via the DJI Mimo app on your phone. On the other hand, the receiver is quite a bit smaller. So if you often need to change those settings, that could be an argument for the Mic 3, but if not, well, then you aren't really missing out on much, and you could get a more compact receiver as well. The Mic Mini 2S also supports, just like the other DJI microphones, direct connection to your DJI camera via OsmoAudio. So if you have an Action 5 or 6 camera or an Osmo 360 Nano or Pocket 3 or newer, well, then you can connect the microphone directly to the camera without the receiver. That's the way I use DJI's microphones myself, and it's truly brilliant because you just have to turn on the camera and the microphone and then you're ready to go. If you need to connect to a traditional camera or your smartphone, both a USB-C adapter and a 3.5mm TRS cable are also included in the box. The included case also acts as a charger for both microphones and the receiver, and it gives you a total battery life of up to 40 hours. A cool thing here is that there's room for everything in the case, even the small 3.5mm cable. The case also functions as a dock for your computer, so when you connect it via USB, the microphones automatically appear as drives on the computer, so you can easily copy the internal recordings over. Regarding the case, however, you should be aware that if you buy a Mic Mini 2S package with only 1 microphone, then the case you receive can only be used for charging, not for connecting the microphone to your computer. Instead, you get a small USB-C adapter for that. It's not quite as elegant, but on the other hand, the case is significantly smaller. Incidentally, the packages with 1 microphone are available in 2 different versions. One comes with the same receiver as the large package, the other with an even more compact mobile receiver. So if you film exclusively on your phone, that one is worth considering, even though the Mini 2S receiver can also easily be used with a phone. What you should choose depends entirely on your needs. However, if you expect to switch to a larger camera instead of your phone at some point, then I would recommend one of the packages with the Mini 2S receiver so that you're prepared for that. So, is the Mic Mini 2S really a Mic 3 in disguise? Not 100%, but it's certainly close. DJI has effectively taken the most important features from their flagship microphone, 4 simultaneous transmitters, 32-bit float recording, built-in memory and the possibility of recording directly on the microphone without extra equipment, and put it into a microphone at a significantly lower price. If you want a Mic 3 package with 2 microphones, it currently costs €269. At the time of recording, I don't have the price in euros for the corresponding Mini 2S package, but here in Denmark, it's around 66 euros less than the Mic 3. And, of course, the package also includes the faceplates in 10 different colors, something that currently doesn't exist for the Mic 3 at all. If you only need one microphone and the receiver, it currently costs 179 euros with the Mic 3. Here in Denmark, the Mini 2S is again around 66 euros cheaper, so an even better deal percentage-wise, and that's regardless of whether you choose the package with the standard receiver or the mobile receiver. So unless you must have a touchscreen directly on your receiver, or you cannot live without timecode on your audio recordings, well, then in my opinion, there's no great reason to spend the extra money on the Mic 3. The Mic Mini 2S gives you pretty much the same possibilities at a significantly better price, and that makes it one of the best current bets for compact wireless microphones. If you own a DJI camera with OsmoAudio, well, then it's a no-brainer. In principle, you can also just simply buy the microphone without the receiver, which is an even cheaper way to get good audio. You could also use just the microphone with any other camera by just recording internally, if you don't mind syncing up the audio to the video in post. If I have to say something negative about the Mic Mini 2S, it's actually only that I would have liked some front plates that cover the DJI logo. That's something that a number of other microphone manufacturers have started doing, and it's pretty cool if you want a more neutral look rather than advertising for DJI in all your videos. But what do you think? Would you consider the Mic Mini 2S over the more expensive alternatives? Let me hear your opinion in the comments sections, and remember to subscribe to the channel for more videos. There's also one ready for you right there. See you soon!